My name's Alicia, and I'm one of the directors of Women Who Code Philadelphia, along with Rebecca and Megan, who are also on the call. We're going to do a few lightning talks and then get into open mic. Feel free to join in with voice, camera, or chat. No need to be super formal because this is a small group. Communicate however you're comfortable. You don't have to have voice and camera on. Rebecca will be moderating the chat at the beginning, and then I'll be moderating a little bit later during her lightning talk. First off, introducing the directors. Starting with me, I'm a software developer, and I've been a software developer for 8 years, and I wrote code for the first time in college around 10 years ago. I'm a full-time remote software developer. I started full-time remote last year, and I have 4 cat coworkers at home. Becca, would you like to give another intro?
Yeah, so I'm Becca, and I'm the VP of Technology at a marketing firm called Simpatico Studios, and basically make sure that all of our websites get out, everyone's computers are working, anything tech-related basically falls to me to manage. And I'm also really excited to get this Philadelphia chapter of Women Who Code started and meet people and just get to know everybody and see how we can support you in your technology journeys. Megan?
Hi, everyone. Megan Rodenheiser. I work for a company. I'm lucky to live and work in about a 2-mile radius. It's called American Reading Company. We're built and run by education activists. So we support equitable education solutions, both digital and analog. I am the business systems analyst, so I play sort of a hybrid role. Some days I'm database administrator. I'm always constantly evaluating our various business processes in order to increase efficiencies. And I also support, customize, and upgrade our business systems because we manage them all in-house. We don't have outside consulting. So it's a very diverse hybrid role, but I love it because no day is ever the same. And I'm very excited that Women Who Code is finally in Philadelphia.
All right, those are the directors. Thank you, Becca and Megan. We do have a guest speaker, Pam. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Alicia. My name is Pam McCraddock. I am a customer success manager at Microsoft. And basically, my role is taking many years, over 25 years experience on technology, business systems, industry experience, and applying that to helping our banking and capital markets around the world implement business systems appropriately with proper change management, project management, integrations to technology. So I'm so excited to be here and feel really grateful to have been asked. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to move into a little bit about Women Who Code. We're a nonprofit organization dedicated to inspiring women to grow and excel in technology careers. We do have chapters all over the world, one of the newest being Philadelphia. We want to build a world where women are equally represented in all roles across technology, engineering, managers, executives, founders, everywhere at all levels. We have a code of conduct. If you're interested in reading about it in detail, it's on the website. We want to make sure that we have an inclusive community. We don't want anyone to feel unwelcome. If you have any concerns or questions, please reach out to me, Becca, or Megan. And as I said, there's a ton more information on the website online. Okay, so first lightning talk is me. I'll get into that and then we'll get into the other talks. Today, I am going to be talking about embracing uncomfortable, my journey to becoming an all the stacks developer. One of the themes that comes up a lot for technical growth, and a lot of the time it comes up in Women Who Tech events and communities, is that you're not growing unless you're uncomfortable. And the spirit of this is that you continue to challenge yourself and you take on things that you're afraid of, rather than, you know, uncomfortable office furniture or staying at a job where you're just not happy. So keeping in mind that this is all about growth, not suffering. So as of a year and a half ago, I was mostly a Java backend developer. And I had been trying to get promoted for many years. And every time I talked to my managers about it, I said, what do I need to do next? What do I need to do to get promoted? And they said, you just need to do a bigger project. You need to build up your scope. And so I said, okay, well, how can you help me get a project that builds scope and that is bigger and can get me promoted? And, I was told to wait, and, a project would come up. We just have to wait for the right time. I was not okay with waiting and hoping that things would go well. So I went and looked for mentors. I tried to find people who I looked up to and asked them for help. How do I find a new project? Do you know about any teams that have projects like these? I've been working in this space for almost a decade. Surely I can, I'm qualified to do one of these projects. Eventually, one of my mentors came to me and said, I've got this project. It really needs your skill set because there's not many people at the company that have as much experience with you as you do. The only catch is that it's iOS. So I would have to be working on an iPhone app. To give you a bit of a sense of how uncomfortable this was for me, I had not owned an iDevice in my entire life. I was still learning how to use a Mac because at the time I had just been given a Mac for work. And I had never worked in mobile at all. I kind of knew that Objective-C and Swift were languages that were used, but I'd never even seen code written in those languages. So I was like, wow, if I take this project, it's going to be a disaster. And on the other hand, this is the first promotion project that came to me. I was like, oh, what do I do? Do I, walk into disaster, or do I stay in my comfort zone and wait for something in that area to come in? I thought about it for a bit and eventually decided it's worth it. The worst thing that could happen is I find out it's not for me and I move back to my old project. The best thing that could happen is I get promoted and I learn a new skill set and I become, a better developer. Maybe not better, but a more broad skill developer. So I said, sure, I'll do this, but I'll need help. And so it was a bit difficult to say, I've been a developer for almost a decade and I'm asking for help, but I figured I wanted to be honest about it and set expectations that this is new to me, let's work together on it. So that's where things got started. And unfortunately, this was just the beginning of uncomfortable, or more fortunately, because I came out of it with a lot of learning. My job was to design an analytics pipeline starting from the mobile device. And I thought initially it was come up with a new way to send data from mobile. And in a sense it was. I had to find a way to support online, offline, and like 99.9% reliability, but it also required a little bit of backend. Because it was a mobile team and because this was such a simple, take data, send data, it worked out better to have serverless. I also hadn't done serverless before. So I was like, okay, well, here's another thing, but at least it's backend. And I kind of that's kind of my area. The other thing was that typically you don't use Java for serverless. So I thought, well, okay, let's throw in another language there. Let's go with Python. Python is my favorite language for scripting. And so this is the first time I would be writing something that's actually an application, but I was already familiar with it. So I was like, great. So this is more in my comfort zone. We've got a mix of things, still learning a lot, but things were going well. I had hacked my way through some Swift iOS code and I had attached it to my serverless function. I'm like, great, things are working. And so I presented my results and he said, wow, that's great. So can you do this for Android too? I was like, okay, well, I'm in it this far and Android is kind of like Java. And I mean, the development tools are more or less the same. So of course, sure, let's add that on, no problem. So it happened again where I had redone all the work I did in iOS, struggling through it, but the development tools were actually very similar, IntelliJ and Android Studio. So I was like, okay, got this done, still feeling like it's really hacky, don't really want to know what the other developers think I'm doing, but I kept going and I got it done. And finally I presented this. I'm like, got my Android solution, got my iOS solution, got my serverless Python solution, was a Java backend developer, and it went really well. The delivery of the project went through. I got my promotion, and I'm still working on it and I'm still investing in it. But what happened after everything was like, yay, surprise, like, congratulations. We actually need a more intensive backend for this. Could you add a Java backend service? I was like, oh my gosh, I'm back right where I wanted to be. This really, scary project that was iOS, mobile, Android, it actually ended up becoming the project I had been asking for, where I got to write my own Java backend service from bottom to top and plug it into this really complex system. And so I got my big project, my greater scope. It was quite painful to learn everything that was completely new up until I got there. But now I can say that my comfort zone is definitely a little bit bigger. So I make it sound like easy, where I just went to iOS and I went to Android and I, like inspiring montage my way through it. But there were a lot of times where, I'd sit at my desk and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't even build this code. Why is Xcode not working? Why isn't my app updating? And every time I sent a code review, I was worried that people would say, what are you doing? You're not a mobile developer. You shouldn't be writing code here. And so it was just a lot of, anxiety and stress that, no, like, it's not that they will find out I'm not a mobile developer. I really am not a mobile developer. And so having worked on this for almost a year, I still kind of feel this way. But one really great thing that happened this week, one of my coworkers, I was talking to him, I said, I'm so sorry I'm asking all these questions about Android. I'm really not an Android developer. And he said, I'm seeing you write code and I'm going through your code reviews. You are an Android developer. I was like, oh my goodness. Like, I can stop calling myself a Java developer. I am an Android developer. I am a Python developer. I am an iOS developer, even though most days it doesn't really feel like it. I also ended up in a very interesting and fun position where I'm the only developer on my team and also at my company, as far as I know, that does iOS, Android, serverless, and sort of full microservice backend. So I end up being pulled into a lot of different things saying, we only know Android or we only know iOS. Can you give us the background on this? Or the mobile developers don't know much about how we connect to the rest of the company technically. And so I get added, people say, well, you're the expert here. I'm like, I'm no expert, but I definitely feel empowered to just jump between the areas and help where I can, even if it's just making sure a bug is fixed on both platforms, or telling people what the pros and cons are for different implementations in each, or calling out, oh, Android doesn't really work that way. So it's been really hard to get here, but a lot of fun to be where I am and having this all the stacks kind of skill set. And so coming back to feeling uncomfortable, it can be really scary to take on an uncomfortable project, but I hope everyone sort of takes that chance. And even if it's just a little bit of learning, even if you just learn how to fix bugs in a new space, it's really valuable to open up conversations and to help yourself gain that influence and scope and open up those bigger projects. That's all I have for my lightning talk. We'll do a couple of questions if anyone has questions. Feel free to send them in the chat or just unmute, and we're 6 people, we'll figure it out.
Well, I have a question. So what would you say to someone who's trying to get out of their comfort zone but struggling a bit, like how to make the uncomfortable a little more comfortable?
One thing that I retrospectively realized I was doing is when I approached my managers or mentors and I would say, are there any big projects in backend and Java? And I already excluded myself from growth because I had not asked for projects in general. I basically said, this is my comfort zone, give me work in it. And that meant, well, I was obviously not going to get the projects outside of my comfort zone. So I kept having to rephrase to myself what kind of developer I am. So I'm not a backend developer. I like working with cloud architecture, or I like working with data pipelines. And so not necessarily trying to talk to yourself about what skill sets do I really have, and then on the other hand, how can I grow? And so sort of rephrasing the question and rephrasing what your comfort zone is so that maybe there's actually some overlap. So if you say cloud, well, that could have opened up serverless for me rather than only microservice backend. In terms of, so that kind of, you're in your comfort zone, but your comfort zone is sort of a different shape than it was before. One of the things other times is that you just sort of have to take the plunge and somebody says, hey, can you do this? And you're like, sure, why not? Like, let's try it. And the best way is to sort of get some safety nets in place. So talk to mentors and say, I've got this new project. I would love to have a mentor in iOS. Do you know anyone who can help me through it? So before you take the plunge, make sure that you feel comfortable that you're going to get the help you need. And there's almost always someone to help. And sometimes my managers were really understanding. I said, you know, I've never done this before. Like, it's okay. We understand. We have a few people that we've assigned to answer your questions primarily, and they know the situation. And so rephrasing to yourself, trying not to box yourself in too much because you are more than just one language, and creating a safety net where you feel okay and you're not gonna, like, failure is okay, that even failure will be a success.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions? Cool. We are going to move on to the second lightning talk. Becca.
So what I'm going to be talking about today is giving. And this might be asking yourself, why? Like, why am I talking about giving in the context of your career, of your workplace? And that's because, contrary to what many of us have maybe experienced in school, your projects are not individual. Every time you work on something, you're working with other people, and your success depends on your ability to interact with other people and the way that you're approaching your interactions with them. In his book, Give and Take, Adam Grant talks about 3 different types of giving, 3 different ways of approaching your interactions with people. There's takers, people who take more than they give, and this isn't necessarily people who are cruel or malicious, but it's people who are looking to protect themselves, to make sure that they get credit, that they get the resources they need for their projects, that they succeed. And then on the other end, there's givers, people who prefer to give more than they get and are paying attention to what other people need in order to succeed. And besides that, there's also matchers, people who are matching. This is what you see a lot in professional settings. People who say, like, okay, I will give you a reference, but I expect you to do the same when I come back and ask for it. Or I expect you to give my cousin a reference when I ask for it. And this isn't necessarily to say that people are wholly one or the other. A lot of this actually depends on the culture that you're in, on the norms of your workplace. So people may be matchers in their workplace because that's sort of what's expected of them, but they may be givers at home. And Adam Grant goes on to talk about how your giving style at work actually is tied into your success. So you may ask, but so which style of giving leads to most success? And you may guess that the givers are at the bottom because they're spending their time helping other people, and you'd be right, they're at the bottom. But then it's not takers or matchers who are at the top, it's generally givers again, because they are actually providing more value to other people, and their success ripples out. So if a taker succeeds, and it's not to say that takers and matchers don't succeed, but when takers succeed, the matchers are saying, oh, well, I helped you out and you burned me, I want you to fail. And there's someone who's losing if the takers are winning. But if you're a giver, other people are rooting for your success. Other people are nicely plotting your success behind your back instead of maliciously plotting, well, not maliciously, but, matching up what you gave them to have your downfall happen because you burned them in the past and didn't help them out. Givers are creating value And in that way, we can all actually change the way that we interact at work. So when we say that your giving style actually matches what the giving style is at work, it comes back to the way that people are interacting at work. So takers can really ruin the culture of a workplace. This is something to keep in mind when you are interviewing for a job. If it seems like people are saying, I did this, I'm the CEO of the company, and I made this project happen, then it's a good indication that that culture could be toxic, that people in there, the incentives are backwards. You're told that you should be contributing and working together towards a common goal, but in reality, your bonus depends on someone else not doing a good job. And that's where it comes back also to people who have the ability to do the hiring, to decide on how bonuses work, to make sure that your incentives and your culture lines up to make sure that givers are given the ability to succeed and to provide their value without being in a situation where people are taking from them. And the other thing you may be asking yourself is, okay, but you said givers are at the bottom as well as the top. So how do I become a giver who succeeds rather than one who has burned out, who has helped other people at the expense of themselves? And one of the ways is that you're less likely to burn out as a giver if you connect with the impact that you're having. So if you're helping someone get a job, you hear from them later. Like, that's a good way also. Right now, everyone's mental health, I'm sure, is suffering. Like, you're at home, you're by yourself. It's hard to connect with other people. But if you have a connection with that impact that you're having, it's a lot easier to keep giving and to really get more motivation from that. It's that meaning that matters. But if you're helping people who aren't succeeding in a good way, if you're helping takers, then that can really burn you out. So part of it is also helping people in a way that still protects yourself, not just helping in a way that says, okay, well, I'm going to give everything that I have to help other people, but giving in a way that means you're putting on your oxygen mask first and then helping other people's with theirs. So making sure that you're helping people from a good place and a place that feels good to you, and not just helping people at the expense of yourself. So you can actually help people right now. There's lots of ways to volunteer virtually, and there's Women Who Code, and other ways to connect with people. Right now, meaning and connection is something I think that we all really desire as human beings, that we all really want. And it's a good way to make sure that we're all happier, as happy as we can be under the circumstances. So helping other women, helping with tech girls, with middle school age girls, learning about technology, and more love letters, the Smithsonian Institute. There's all sorts of ways that you can choose to give back in a way that's meaningful to you. It doesn't have to be a way that makes sense to somebody else, but if it's a way that's meaningful to you, then it actually ends up helping you in the long run. And I really love the last quote that Adam Grant says at the end, that by shifting ever so slightly in the giver direction, we might find our waking hours marked by greater success, richer meaning, and more lasting impact. And I think that's something that all of us can take to heart when we spend so much of our time at work. It can be really draining if you're in a toxic culture of people taking and looking out just for themselves. But even just one giver can help change that around. And you don't have to be afraid to be the person in your company who's helping other people, because it will help you in the long run. He also talks about how giving is something that's part of a marathon, not a sprint. So in the short run, yes, giving and helping other people will take away time from what you're working on, but in the long run, we're all helping everybody and helping add more value so that there's more for everybody and it's not a zero-sum game. All right. So if anyone has any questions or any comments.
I do. So it's actually interesting as a comment that there's these three groups, because in my head I'm like, oh, you know what? That really makes sense in some previous situations. So in general, I like to help people, even if I know I'm not going to get something back, especially, with Women Who Code. I try to help women who come into or tech area and say, by the way, the guy next to you reads blog posts and writes code in the evenings. You don't have to do that. But I've also been in situations where I've had to sort of step back and defensively become a matcher because I ended up, say, reporting to a manager that's a taker. And does that come up? Like, what's the recommendation on what to do in that situation where you're a giver, you find yourself in a work relationship with somebody who's a matcher or a taker? And you're like, well, I'm going to burn myself out. So what do you do?
Yeah, so I mean, that would be where you decide where to concentrate your energies. Like, yeah, in that situation, giving is not providing meaning or help to you. Like, they're just taking advantage of you, which is not something that you want. So you can just step away from that and either do the matching or just make sure that you're not burning out by giving in ways that aren't meaningful to you and honestly are not having people take advantage of you.
Rebecca, thanks for bringing this. I love this book to start with. I have like a twofold question. One is like a question and then a comment. So the first question is I think I know the answer, but what are some of your favorite ways to give?
Yeah, so Pam and I actually met at Tech Girls, which is teaching middle school girls about technology, which is something that I really love because at that age, I thought computers were just something my brother did, and it was not something that I was good at. So I just ignored it and didn't have anything to do with it and just called someone else if the computer wasn't working. So I really enjoy seeing the girls learning about technology, but also helping each other and being confident enough to tell each other, like, oh, that's not how you do it. This is how you do it. And I figured out how to, make my character move in Scratch. And it's really fun to see them being so confident and helpful with each other. And the other way is just knowing that I can just take action when I see something is like, so, if I want to teach kids how to program, like I can go to Coder Dojo, which is a global organization that does grassroots clubs to teach kids, and they give you materials to help start your own programming club to teach kids. So there are things out there where if you don't see something that resonates with you, you can start your own organization to help in the way that you want to help.
Thank you. And I wanted to see if this is from this book or not. As a general comment, I read it like maybe 3 years ago. And at that time, it affected me so greatly that I took time to start writing LinkedIn reviews for individuals more than I receive, right? And I think it was in that book that they talked about a particular person that gave like thousands of LinkedIn recommendations, to different individuals. And I think that is part of, now it's ingrained in me. Sometimes I'll take a look at someone's LinkedIn profile when I'm beginning to work with them, or even the interview process or whatever, to see what type of person they are. Have they either received, or really are they giving more, LinkedIn reviews, like what that balance is, or if there's nothing. I think that was in the book around that, right? With like someone who gave quite a bit of LinkedIn recommendations to people. Like every day, that process of sitting down for 5 minutes, I think that's a real giving thing. 5 minutes thinking about someone I know and giving them a great recommendation, right?
Yeah, they talk a lot in this book about Adam Rifkin and his 5-minute favor, which is basically like you can really help someone with an introduction, with just connecting them with another group, another organization in 5 minutes. And it doesn't take very much of your time, but you can provide a lot of value to them by just taking 5 minutes to help them out.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? comments? I think we'll actually go to Pam now for her lightning talk.
Great. And I think someone will move slides for me, right? Should I give the like thumbs up to move?
Yeah, that's me. I'm gonna try to just machine learning my way into picking up the context. But
Okay.
if I'm slow, just give me a thumbs up.
All right. Well, I'll also give a wink here and there, Alicia. So
Perfect.
thankfully, this is a lightning talk, and I actually talk quite fast. So I think that we'll breeze through this, and I'm really excited to even talk about this. But so my name is Pam Craddock. I hear this even in some of the conversations that we've had today from Alicia and from Becca, and I'm excited for the open mic about, you know, the whole growth mindset of moving our way through technology and what that means. And a little bit about my background is I was in the military. I actually started at Penn State in computer science. Then I went through several different jobs. And just so you know, like technology's always been there, but there was a time in my life where I thought, oh, I think I'll try to be a butcher's assistant, believe it or not. And I was a vegetarian. And then I went into HR for a little bit. And I think that as women in technology or women in general, it's not about that ladder anymore. It's about that lateral lattice move through our fencing, right? And I think that gives us so many experiences to really bring more to our work and more to technology. So I do have some pride around, you know, maybe being a Penn Stater. I went to Penn State, and also I do work for Microsoft, and I love the fact that I got a little bit of discipline in the Army. I was a little bit of wild. I don't want to say I was wild, but the Army provided me a whole other discipline on just really operating procedures, which I would need later in my life. So if you don't mind, Alicia, we'll just kind of roll through the next slide. So here's my dilemma, and it's been my dilemma all my life, basically. But in my current role, as I've gone through different parts of my journey, there was a time that I actually left a job. I actually just quit a job one day. It wasn't working for me. I wasn't having any meaning in my job. And I worked for a consulting company around IT and business systems. And as I started to walk through the woods and figure out, like, what am I going to do left? It was this pivotal moment I was like 43, and that was just last year, by the way. There was this pivotal moment. What am I going to do with my life? Here, I've been in technology all my life. Here, I love helping people do great things, right? Like, I love humans and the way humans work, and I like the combination of them all. But also, there was this thing of like, there's just so much noise. And I also had dings, rings. I like to call it my beeps, dings, rings, and other things. I really lost sense of myself over a couple years as a leader too. Like, there was information coming, people needing stuff here. There was customers needing things and direction here. There was the personal life. And I also then was just kind of finding myself like this, right, all the time. And I actually just wanted to look like this lady on the right here. I wanted to, number one, have great teeth and maybe get some Invisaligns, which I haven't yet. But also I just wanted to kind of dance in the rain. Like, on bad days, I wanted to dance in the rain again and know that it was like, hey, everything's okay. Sometimes it rains, sometimes the sun shines, right? And I'd lost that ability to be the duck in the water. And I actually read a great book that Becca and I actually were talking about. We read the same book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. And I wanted more, you're good at that. I wanted more of like that deep work and be more present. And I feel like I was missing out on my life, and just really, my life was just a giant flow chart. So I'm ready now, Alicia. You were on it before I was. And anytime I sat down, I was feeling like the tiniest moments, like I was bringing my phone to the couch. When I woke up in the morning, I was heading over and just looking here. When I was with my parents or with my spouse, any moment, or even when I was on my walks with my dogs, I kept going into my pocket and pulling my phone out to see what was happening. Everyone always knew where I was. I talked a little bit earlier, if you entered the conversation or the Zoom meeting prior to the lightning talks, Apple Watch. Every time I turned around, like somebody was calling on my Apple Watch, there was a ding, and I was looking at this Apple Watch. And here's the funny part, and I was actually going to put a crow flying through the presentation, but I was a human crow. Every time I heard of a new app that was out, a new technology, I never went through the thought of like how this was going to value me. I was like, TikTok, let me check this TikTok out. And I was like this crow that anything shiny and new, I needed to know what that was, how it needed to be used. I needed to put on my phone. So I don't know about you ladies, but now my phone would have like 100 different apps that I don't even know what I was using. At one point, I downloaded Robinhood so I can use the Doge coins. Just to have cryptocurrency so I could just play with the Robinhood app, which I don't need. I have a 401k. So what I'd lost is really focus. And instead of being a minimalist, I was now a maximalist. Like all I had was all this digital, all this noise, and it was my issue, my fault. And I remembered Cal Newport, and I actually was listening to a podcast, which I do find value in. And Cal was talking about this book that he wrote, Digital Minimalism. And it wasn't really the name that got me, because I'm like, ew, here's somebody that doesn't like digital stuff, technology, the anti-technology person, right? But really what he was saying was, here, listen to this. Why don't you start choosing a focused life in a noisy world? And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't even know what that looks like. And there's one phrase, one quote he said, that minimalists don't mind missing out on the small things, right? What worries me and what was keeping me up at night was this, that I was missing out on the really, really good things. Okay, I'm ready now, Alicia. Thank you. So now I needed to take my my crazy relationship with all this media, and I'm gonna replace them with digital or intentional ones. And he provided this, this 3-step process that I wanted to run through as an experiment. And it was step 1, define the rules. Step 2, the breakout, right? Breakout, but really it was a breakup. It was going to be a breakup. We're going to take a separation, guys. It was like having not a divorce, but we're going to separate and really take a look at our relationship. And then I was going to reintroduce. So moving on. So here's the declutter process. And I want to just point out that I'm not going to run through, like, I'm not Cliff Notes, Pam. I'm not giving you the full skinny or the full Monty on this book. There's other parts of this book that I would recommend any and all of us women to read. But there is a part about decluttering. And I don't know if anyone has read this, but Maria Kondo wrote a book about like tidying up. And you're supposed to say, does this bring me joy? And we'll kind of talk through that. But one, I needed to sit down and define my technology rules. So I took a look at all my technology, and including, I loved hearing Alicia plays video games. I always think it's funny because I play video games too. I have them on my phone, I have them on my machine, I have them on my computer. I needed to go ahead and start pulling some of those back, because honestly at 9:30 at night, and this is happening now, I'm gonna have to take it off. I'm in the Call of Duty on mobile for some reason. So I need to take Call of Duty off my phone, right? Because it's taking away those moments for me. I know that it's an issue, so I wanna list those out, and I did list those out. And it's not about, listen, it's not about when he walks through this process, it's not about like, we're just going to get rid of all of it. It's like, okay, you know, we talk about Zoom, we need Zoom. The things that we need to have that create actual value in our personal life, we should have on there. But I needed to write those down, and I needed to know which ones and what I was going to do. And this isn't just apps. This is about the way maybe I use some of those apps as well. For instance, I may say to myself, okay, Call of Duty, I'm going to keep it on there, but maybe I'm only going to use it maybe once a week, right? Or once a day, maybe not at night. So then step 2, I'm going to take a 30-day break. Now that seems like a long time, but that's what the next thing you do, you take a 30-day break. And we have to fill those activities, and I had to fill those activities with higher quality activities, such as 1, yoga, 2, learning how to play just a couple of strums on the guitar. That was 1, right? Oh, that was something. But 3, those things like start to fill those spots in. One of the things is I hate playing board games with my wife, right? Because it just takes her so long to like go to the next move, and it just drives me crazy, right? So I actually decided, okay, I'm going to sit down and actually fill more time that way. And I'm going to sit there and wait it all out. And we can play bananagrams, and that will be okay. Even down to, I bought a crossword puzzle book so we can do crossword puzzle stuff together. I mean, it makes me feel like I'm like 80, but it really is like, I'll tell you now, it was one of the best things I ever did, right? It really, like, there's a few minutes that we get to spend some time together. And the Bennett principle is a pretty cool thing that he actually outlines, is that we need to prioritize demanding activities over passive consumption. I love that. Like passive consumption of things. Like, okay, I'm not going to do that. Maybe I'll just sit and watch then the TV. Really demanding like those interactive times, like you have to actually have quality and engage. Number 3 is like seek activities and require real world structured social interactions. To be honest, I hadn't even realized I wasn't doing those, but those are things I had to do. And then at the end is reintroduce that. So I have reintroduced this, and I've gone through this process maybe 2 or 3 times by now. So what I do is I actually take and I say, does this technology directly support something I deeply value? Listen, I don't do Facebook anymore, you guys. Like I have this account that's kind of sitting out there that I need to actually push away, but I don't do the like button. I don't try not to like things. I do like things on LinkedIn, and I do like things on Twitter, especially when I'm Women in Code, because I feel like those things provide value, but I just really am not using that like button anymore, or, you know, going out there and using Facebook. And I'll kind of talk in the next slide what happened around that and some real feelings around that, because that's hard stuff, right? And if the value, if it actually helped, I used it. Zoom, you know, here's another thing, you know, well, don't you think like Zoom or these audio video conferencing tools, what do you think about them? Well, they're great, right? The one thing that I have learned when I've reintroduced like some of these audio video is I try to turn my video on with every call now, regardless if I have bedhead or not. I want to have interaction with the other person, because I think that's important. Just having like your name, like it's fine. But for me, it was better to start reintroducing, like making myself and pushing myself to have those interactions that we need, especially during this pandemic. So I'll let you read these. We'll probably see the slides later, but I'm going to want to make sure we get time at the end for open mic. So in summary, I will tell you the FOMO was real. I actually became one of those over-the-shoulder lookers of like, what's going on Facebook? Because I wanted to see what was actually going on. But over a few days, I started to let go. I started to take those walks. I don't think that, you know, I'll follow up with the end story about how me and Becca met, but I also found out that I had a fear of solitude, like being by myself. You know, I thought I was okay with that. Like, I love that Alicia talked about her 4 coworkers that were cats. I always thought I was a kind of cat person. Like I could just hang out, be by myself. I only let my cats into my office because, you know, we just like to kind of chill and they're quiet. But I really thought, now what do I do? What do I do at this moment that feels absolutely uncomfortable? And I just let myself actually sit in this. And again, this is an organic process I'm still walking through, and this book is providing so much, but there's a whole section on, it's called solitude deprivation, which please run out and read about it. But the 3 crucial benefits I found is like new ideas. You know, I am bombarded as a customer success manager and as a spouse and as a daughter and as a cat owner and a dog owner and a fish owner. I don't know if that's a thing, but I'm bombarded with the world coming at me with dings. And, you know, when I'm going to even the restroom and my mom can call me on the telephone, like that's not okay. During this time, she's already rang me once, right? But even customers calling me, and I work in the capital and banking industries, and you know, they're all suits, and these are millions and millions and trillions of dollars. And the stress of all that, I began to just react more, and my life became just a giant flow chart of how, you know, program flow chart or ERD, like how these relationships need to actually roll out. But now I have new ideas with quietness and giving myself that quietness, removing myself, saying, okay, I'm not going to have an hour during my workday. I am going to step away. I didn't think I could. And I'm going to sit in my chair and figure out really what and how I can empathize with my customer and really think through my relationships, even with myself. That actually provided me new ways to creatively figure out problems. Is this a technology problem? Is it a programming problem? Is it a business process and problem? Is it a people problem, right? Is it an organizational problem? I think that, you know, when we're able to not then pick up a phone and say, I'm just going to play Call of Duty and take my 15-minute break, or I'm going to look at Facebook, that actually provided me some things that I didn't have an opening. And I'm really happy for that. And when I met Becca, I actually had started walking through this and reading this book. And I'm so grateful, because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for this book, because I met Becca at Tech Girls. We did an expo together. But typically in the past, my mode of operating would have been meet somebody, let's get on LinkedIn and tip tap, right? And then let's maybe we'll become Facebook friends and I'll like some of your stuff and we might talk, right? But what actually happened is we became friends, and then we met. We said, oh, let's chit chat and back and forth. But then we decided to start doing Zoom meetings, and we actually have a Zoom meeting, a stand-up Zoom meeting with Becca's not a stranger anymore. I think within 3 meetings, we're pretty good friends. We may even call each other best friends now. But I think that if I didn't reach out and say, okay, in this moment, what's the best way I can use technology to really, I value things like this. I value connecting with other women in technology and other women in general, and networking this way. How can I be a ladder for others? How can me, just exchange a social interaction, remove that distancing? I don't think I would have pushed myself to actually do that. And I greatly appreciate having had this opportunity to talk to you guys today about this. And I hope that you do read this book. It's life-changing. Thanks. Oh, any questions? I do think that was pretty lightning, right?
That's definitely.
Oh, Becca's laughing about it. Like, that's just the typical, I always feel like I've been through a tornado when we've talked for 5 minutes.
No, I love it. And it's really great because I definitely agree, like having those low quality social interactions leads people to be more timid with, like Pam and I just went straight into it. Like, okay, let's just do the Zoom meeting. Like, we'll just get right to like being more connected rather than, maybe I'll follow you on LinkedIn and like, creep on your profile a bit and not actually say anything to you.
I'm just going to rearrange things a little bit because we're almost out of time. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that there are tons of digital events being scheduled through Women Who Code Online that you can access at womenwhocode.com digital. If you're interested in speaking, please reach out. As I think Sierra mentioned, she's in the Cincinnati Women Who Code chapter, and I think cross-chapter collaboration is also great. So if you're not in our chapter, that's fine too. We can connect through the same links we have on our Facebook page, Twitter, Meetup, and definitely join the Women Who Code Slack channel if you haven't already. So I'm then going to go back to the open mic. Since we are so few people, we can just casually chat a bit. I would love to hear about maybe something related to the talks. Are you a giver or a taker or a matcher? Definitely what types of behaviors do you see in other people at work, or maybe an uncomfortable situation where you learned something new, or possibly how, maybe how digital decluttering is impacting your life, maybe work-life balance, maybe, enjoying nature a bit more.
I can say very quickly, those talks were amazing, and I connected with each of them in different ways. Pam, while you were talking, I actually went and bought that book. I'm super passionate about reading, so I like leadership material, books of any sort. I work for a reading company, so obviously I love books. And I did have a recommendation. One of the most inspiring keynote speakers I think I've ever seen, I don't know if anyone has heard of him. His name is Brian Solis. He's a digital evangelist. He just got hired with Salesforce. I'm just a little bit obsessed with him. But he wrote a book that was great. It's called Life Scale, and it's about how to live a more creative and productive, happy life while balancing all of your like being pulled in non-lateral directions. I'm gonna link it in the chat. It goes on, I'm really excited to read the digital minimalism book because it sounds like sort of along the same vein, but I mean, if you can find any of his keynotes, it's just what he talks about. It's disrupting technology, and it's amazing. So I just wanted to make sure to note that here because it's on the same sort of level that we're on today.
Great, thanks Megan so much.
That's awesome. I'm also a huge reader. I have a bad habit of checking out a lot of books from the library, which actually stood me in good stead now that all the libraries are closed and I have a ton of books checked out. But yeah, I will definitely put that one on my list.
I really like audiobooks. I'll check out digital audiobooks and just knit and get through them all if anyone has an alternative learning style they like.
I would also love to hear if anyone has any suggestions about what sort of events they would like book club. I would love a book club, but I don't know if everybody's already in a lot of book clubs.
I've never done one before, so I'm always interested in trying one.
That would be a good idea.
Anyone would people be interested in another open mic or interviews or tech talks? Anything? Are people just open to any digital connections?
Alicia, I really liked when you were talking about your role and other people who were discussing some of their roles. I would love a talk on maybe just the broadness of technology. Maybe a couple people from different roles. Megan talked about, she's not a program, but she's in the database in the business analyst section. So, in what Sandy does, I would love to hear talk just about different job positions and roles that other women are in that may help me take that leap to another role that may be of my interest or that I would like to explore.
Great, yeah. Well, so something like, a 5-minute talk, 5-minute lightning talks about, what's a software engineer or what's it like being a software engineer or a database administrator or startup founder, things like that.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And a lot of people, obviously, like Women Who Code can be a little misleading because it sounds like this is just for software developers.
Coding,
yeah. But really, this is for any women working in tech. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're, doing database things, if you're doing data analysis, machine learning, anything really in the tech realm.
Yeah, I think it would be great because those in those positions could even provide some mentorship around what that job is and maybe connections and networking through those ways. So, and I would love to hear more about Sierra's battles of crying every time she has to program. I think it would be a great.
Every time I start crying, it's fine.
Yeah, I would love to hear more.
I'm crying again.
It's real though, right? The struggle is real in this type of, as we grow. Like Alicia was talking to her lightning talk.
Yeah, I don't know, this is possibly like a darker topic, but a few years ago, there was an article that came out in the New York Times about Amazon. At the time I was working at Amazon. And it highlighted that people were saying they were crying at their desks just because of how hard things were. And so for a while we joked about it. It's like, are you going back to cry at your desk? But honestly, like as I became more senior and I really made an effort to reach out to women, like it was really happening a lot. And it was a lot of, if I fail, like I can't fail. I'm not allowed to fail. And this is hard, but I'm not allowed to ask for help. And so that was kind of like, you can ask for help. Like, I'm not going to tell your manager. I'm not going to tell your coworkers. And so that was something that was just kind of surprising where we joked about it, but it was a serious problem.
Anyone else have anything to say? Because we are a little over time, so just.
I'm going to post links to all the book recommendations in the Women Who Code Slack channel for Philadelphia.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming, everybody. We definitely appreciate it and loved talking to all of you. Mm-hmm. And really excited to see you at more events for Women Who Code, and would love to hear from you if you have any requests or suggestions about what those events should be and how we can help you.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for attending again. Thank you, Becca, for organizing with me, Megan. Also, thank you very much for being a Women Who Code director. I'm having a great time. Hopefully we see everyone again soon.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.